Canto 2. The guileful great enchanter parts the Redcrosse Knight from truth, into whose stead fair falsehood steps, and works him waffle ruth. By this, the northern Wagner degrees had set his sevenfold team degrees behind the steadfast star, degrees that was in ocean waves yet never wet, but firm is fixed, and sendeth light from far to all that in the wide deep wandering are, and cheerful Chanticleer degrees with his note shrill had warned once, that Phoebus Faerie Queene hast was climbing up the eastern hill, full envious that night so long his room did fill. 2. When those accursed messengers of hell, that feigning dream, and that fair-forged sprite degrees came to their wicked maester, and gan tell their boodaless pains, and ill succeeding night, who all enraged to see his skilful might deluded so, gan threaten hellish pain and sad Proserpine's wrath, them to affright. But when he saw his threatening was but vain, he cast about, and circled his baleful books again. 3. Eftsoons he took that miscreated fair, and that false other sprite, on whom he spread a seeming body of the subtile air, like a young squire, in loves and lustibed his wanton days that ever loosely led, without regard of arms and dreaded fight. Those two he took, and in a secret bed, covered with darkness and misdeeming night, them both together laid, to joy in vain delight. 4. Forthwith he runs with feigned faithful haste unto his guest, who after troublous sights and dreams, gan now to take more sound repast, whom suddenly he wakes with fearful frights, as one aghast with fiends or damned sprites, and to him calls, rise, rise, unhappy swain that here wecks old in sleep, whiles wicked wights have knit themselves in Venus' shameful chain, come see where your false lady doth her honor stain. 5. All in amaze he suddenly upstart with sword in hand, and with the old man went who soon him brought into a secret part where that false couple were full closely meant in wanton lust and lewd embracement, which when he saw, he burnt with jealous fire. The eye of reason was with rage iblent, and would have slain them in his furious ire, but hardly was restrained of that aged sire. 6. Returning to his bed in torment great, and bitter anguish of his guilty sight, he could not rest, but did his stout heart eat, and wast his inward gall with deep despite, eke some of life, and too long lingering night. At last fair Hesperus degrees in highest sky had spent his lamp and brought forth dawning light, then up he rose, and clad him hastily, the dwarf him brought his steed, so both away do fly. 7. Now when the rosy-fingered morning degrees fair, weary of aged Tithon's degrees saffron bed, had spread her purple robe through dewy air, and the high hills Titan degrees discovered, the royal virgin shook off drowsy head, and rising forth out of her baser bower, looked for her knight, who far away was fled, and for her dwarf that want to wait each hour, then gan she wail and weep to see that woeful stower. 8. And after him she rode with so much speed as her slow beast could make, but all in vain, for him so far had borne his lightfoot steed, pricked with wrath and fiery fierce disdain, that him to follow was but fruitless pain. Yet she her weary limbs would never rest, but every hill and dale, each wood and plain, did search, sore grieved in her gentle breast, he so ungently left her, whom she loved best. 9. But subtle Archimago, when his guests he saw divided into double parts, and Una wandering in woods and forests end of his drift, he praised his devilish arts that had such might over true meaning hearts, yet rests not so, but other means doth make, how he may work unto her further smarts, for her he hated as the hissing snake, and in her many troubles did most pleasure take. 10. He then devised himself how to disguise, for by his mighty science he could take as many forms and shapes in seeming wise as ever Proteus degrees to himself could make. Sometime a fowl, sometime a fish in lake, now like a fox, now like a dragon fell, that of himself he oft for fear would quake, and oft would fly away. Oh, who can tell the hidden power of herbs degrees, and might of magic spell? 11. But now seemed best the person to put on of that good knight, his late beguiled guest. In mighty arms he was yclad anon, and silver shield, upon his coward breast a bloudy cross, and on his craven crest a bunch of hairs discolored diversely. Full jolly knight he seemed, and well addressed, and when he sate upon his courser free, Saint George himself ye would have deemed him to be. 12. But he the knight, whose semblant he did bear, the true Saint George, was wandered far away, still flying from his thoughts and jealous fear. Will was his guide, and grief led him astray. At last him chanced to meet upon the way a faithless Ceres in degrees, all arm 500 to point, in whose great shield was writ with letters gay sans foy. Full large of limb and every joint he was, and cared not for God or man a point. 13. He had a fair companion degrees of his way, a goodly lady clad in scarlet red, purfled with gold and pearl of rich assay, and like a Persian mitre on her head she wore, with crowns and oches garnished, the which her lavish lovers to her gave. Her wanton palfrey all was overspurred with tinsel trappings, woven like a wave, whose bridle rung with golden bells and bosses brave. 14. With fair disport and courting dalliance she entertained her lover all the way, but when she saw the knight his spear advance, she soon left off her mirth and wanton play, and bade her knight address him to the fray. His foe was nigh at hand. He pricked with pride and hope to win his lady's heart that day, forth spurred fast. Adown his courser's side the red blood trickling stained the way, as he did ride. 15. The knight of the Red Cross when him he spied, spurring so hote with rage despiteous, gan fairly couch his spear, and towards ride. Soon meet they both fell and furious, that daunted with their forces hideous. Their steeds do stagger and amazed stand, and eke themselves, too rudely rigorous, astonied with the stroke of their own hand do back rebut, and each to other yieldeth land. 16. As when two rams degrees stirred with ambitious pride, fight for the rule of the rich fleeced flock, their horned fronts so fierce on either side do meet, that with the terror of the shock astonied both, stand senseless as a block, forgetful of the hanging victory. Degrees so stood these twain, unmoved as a rock, both staring fierce, and holding idly the broken reliques degrees of their former cruelty. 17. The Saracen sore daunted with the buff snatcheth his sword, and fiercely to him flies, who well it wards, and quitteth cuff with cuff, each other's equal puissance envies, degrees, and through their iron sides degrees with cruel spies does seek to purse. Repining courage yields no foot to foe. The flashing fear flies as from a forge out of their burning shields, and streams of purple blood new dyes the verdant fields. 18. Curse on that cross, quoth then the Saracen, that keeps thy body from the bitter fit, degrees dead long ago I wot thou hadst been, had not that charm from thee forewarned it, but yet I warn thee now assured sit, degrees and hide thy head. Therewith upon his crest with rigor so outrageous degrees he smit, that a large share degrees it hewed out of the rest, and glancing down his shield from blame him fairly blessed. 19. Who thereat wondrous wroth, the sleeping spark of native virtue gan eftsoons revive, and at his haughty helmet making mark, so hugely stroke, that at the steel did rive, and cleft his head. He tumbling down alive, with blouty mouth his mother earth did kiss. Greeting his grave, his grudging degrees ghost did strive with the frail flesh. At last it flitted is, whither the souls do fly of men that live amies. 20. The lady when she saw her champion fall, like the old ruins of a broken tower, stayed not to wail his woeful funeral, but from him fled away with all her power, who after her as hastily gan scour, bidding the dwarf with him to bring away the Saracen's shield, scene of the conqueror. Her soon he overtook, and bade to stay, for present cause was none of dread her to dismay. 21. She turning backie with rueful countenance, cried, Mercy, mercy, sir, vouchsafe to show on silly dame, subject to hard mischance, and to your mighty will. Her humblest low in so rich weeds and seeming glorious show, did much emove his stout heroic heart, and said, Dear dame, your sudden overthrow much ruth me, but now put fear apart, and tell both who ye be, and who that took your part. 22. Melting in tears, then gan she thus lament, the wretched woman, whom unhappy hour hath now made thrall to your commandment, before that angry heaven's list to lower, and fortune false betrayed me to your power, was, oh, what now availeth that I was born the sole daughter of an emperor, degrees he that the wide west under his rule has, and high hath set his throne, where Tibris doth paw. 23. He in the first flower of my freshest age, betrothed me unto the onely hair degrees of a most mighty king, most rich and sage, was never prince so faithful and so fair, was never prince so meek and debonair. But ere my hoped day of spousal shone, my dearest lord fell from high honor's stair into the hands of his accursed phone, and cruelly was slain, that shall I ever moan. 24. His blessed body spoiled of lively breath, was afterward, I know not how, conveyed and fro me hid. Of whose most innocent death when tidings came to me, unhappy maid, oh how great sorrow my sad soul aside. Then forth I went his woeful course to find, and many years throughout the world I strayed, a virgin widow, whose deep wounded mind with love long time did languish as the striken hind. 25. At last it chanced this proud Saracen to meet me wandering, who perforce me led with him away, but yet could never win the fort, that ladies hold in sovereigny dread. There lies he now with foul dishonor dead, who whiles he lived was called proud Sansfa, the eldest of 3 brethren, all 3 bred of one bad sire, whose youngest is Sans, and twixt them both was born the bloudy bold Sansley. 26. In this sad plight, friendless, unfortunate, now miserable I fight us a dwell, craving of you in pity of my state, to do none ill, if please ye not do well. He in great passion all this while did dwell, more busying his quick eyes, her face to view, than his dull ears, to hear what she did tell, and said, Fair lady heart of flint would row the undeserved woes and sorrows which ye show. 27. Henceforth in safe assurance may ye rest, having both found a new friend you to aid, and lost an old foe that did you molest. Better new friend than an old foe is said. With change of cheer the seeming simple maid let fall her eyne, as shamefast to the earth, and yielding soft, in that she not gainsaid, so forth they rode, he feigning seemly mirth, and she coy looks. So dainty they say maketh dearth. 28. Long time they thus together travelled, till weary of their way, they came at last where grew 2 goodly trees, that fair did spread their arms abroad, with grey moss overcast, and their green leaves trembling with every blast, made a calmy shadow far in compass round. The fearful shepherd often there aghast under them never sat, ne want their sound degrees his murray oaten pipe, but shunned unlucky ground. 29. But this good knight soon as he them can spy, for the cool shade degrees him thither hastily got. For golden Phoebus now immounted high, from fiery wheels of his fair chariot, hurled his beams so scorching cruel hot, that living creature mote it not abide, and his new lady it endured not. There they alight, in hope themselves to hide from the fierce heat, and rest their weary limbs atide. 30. Fair seemly pleasance degrees each to other makes, with goodly purposes degrees there as they sit. And in his false fancy, here takes to be the fairest wight that lived yet, which to express he bends his gentle wit, and thinking of those branches green to frame a guirlande for her dainty forehead fit, he plucked a bough, degrees out of whose rift there came small drops of gory blood, that trickled down the same. 31. Therewith a piteous yelling voice was heard, crying, O spare with guilty hands degrees to tear my tender sides in this rough rind embarred, but fly, fly far hence away, for fear least to you hap, that happened to me here. And to this wretched lady, my dear love, O too dear love, love bought with death too dear. Astand he stood, and up his hair did hove, and with that sudden horror could no member move. 32. At last weenas the dreadful passion was overpast, and manhood well awake, yet musing at the strange occasion, and doubting much his sense, he thus bespake. What voice of damned ghost from limbo lake, degrees or gulful sprite wandering in empty air, both which frail men do oftentimes mistake, sends to my doubtful ears these speeches rare, and rueful plaints, me bidding guiltless blood to spare. 33. Then groaning deep, nor damned ghost, quoth he, nor gulful sprite to thee these words doth speak, but once a man fragubio degrees now a tree wretched man wretched tree, whose nature weak a cruel which her cursed will to wreak, hath thus transformed and placed in open plains, where Boreas doth blow full bitter bleak, and scorching sun does dry my secret veins, for though a tree I seem, yet cold and heat me pains. 34. Say on fragubio then, or man, or tree, quoth then the knight, by whose mischievous arts art thou misshaped thus, as now I see. He oft finds medicine, who his grief imparts, but double griefs afflict concealing hearts, as raging flames who striveth to suppress. The author then, said he, of all my smarts, is one douce a false sorceress, that many errant knights hath brought to wretchedness. 35. In prime of youthly years, when courage hot the fire of love and joy of chivalry first kindled in my breast, it was my lot to love this gentle lady, whom ye see, now not a lady, but a seeming tree, with whom as once I rode accompanied, me chanced of a knight encunted be, that had a like fair lady by his side, like a fair lady, but did foul douce hide. 36. Whose forged beauty he did take in hand, all other dames to have exceeded far, I in defence of mine did likewise stand. Mine, that did then shine as the morning star. So both to battle fierce arranged are, in which his harder fortune was to fall under my spear. Such is the die of war, his lady left as a prize marshal, did yield her comely person to be at my call. 37. So doubly love 500 of ladies unlike fair th, one seeming such, the other such indeed, one day in doubt I cast for to compare, whether in beauty's glory did exceed. A rosy girland was the victor's meed. Both seemed to win, and both seemed one to be, so hard the discord was to be agreed. Frailissa was as fair mote be, and ever false Douce seemed as fair as she. 38. The wicked witch now seeing all this while the doubtful balance equally to sway, what not by right she cast to win by guile, and by her hellish science raised straightway a foggy mist, that overcast the day, and a dull blast that breathing on her face, dimmed her former beauty's shining ray, and with foul ugly form did her disgrace. Then was she fair alone, when none was fair in place. 39. Then cried she out, Fie, deformed wight, whose borrowed beauty now appeareth plain to have before bewitched all men's sight. O leave her soon, or let her soon be slain. Her loathly visage viewing with disdain, eftsoons I thought her such, as she me told, and would have killed her. But with feigned pain the false witch did my wrathful hand withhold, so left her, where she now is turned to treen mold, degrees. 40. Then forth I took Douce for my dame, and in the witch unweeting joyed long time, ne ever wist but that she was the same, degrees till on a day. That day is every prime. When witches wont do penance for their crime, I chanced to see her in her proper hue degrees bathing herself in origane and thyme. A filthy foul old woman I did view, that ever to have tucked her I did deadly row. 41. Her neither parts misshapen, monstrous were hid in water, that I could not see. But they did seem more foul and hideous, than woman's shape man would believe to be. Thenceforth from her most beastly company I gan refrain, in mind to slip away, soon as appeared safe opportunity. For danger great, if not a sure 500 decay, I saw before mine eyes, if I were known to stray. 42. The devilish hag by changes of my cheer degrees perceive 500 my thought, and drowned in sleep I night, degrees with wicked herbs and ointments did besmear my body all, through charms and magic might, that all my senses were bereaved quite. Then brought she me into this desert waste, and by my wretched lover's side me pight, where now enclost in wooden walls full fast, banished from living wights, our weary days we waste. 43. But how long time, said then the elfin knight, are you in this misformed house to dwell? We may not change, quoth he, this evil plight, till we be bathed in a living well, degrees that is the term prescribed by the spell. Oh how, said he, mote I that well outfind, that may restore you to your wonted well. Time and suffised fates to former kind shall us restore, none else from hence may us unbind. 44. The false Douce, now Fidus a height, heard how in vain Fra Jubio did lament, and knew well all was true. But the good knight full of sad fear and ghastly drariment, when all this speech the living tree had spent, the bleeding bough did thrust into the ground, that from the bloud he might be innocent, and with fresh clay did close the wooden wound, then turning to his lady, dead with fear her found. 45. Her seeming dead he found with feigned fear, as all unweeting of that well she knew, and pained himself with busy care to rear her out of careless swoon. Her eyelids blue and dimmed sight with pale and deadly hue at last she up gan lift. With trembling cheer her up he took, too simple and too true, and oft her kissed. At length all past fear, degrees he set her on her steed, and forward forth did bear.